I used to believe that trust was the quiet foundation of a marriage, something invisible, yet powerful enough to hold two people together, even when everything else shook. But the night I discovered the backup file, my entire understanding of love shattered. I remember staring at the screen, my hands trembling so hard I thought the mouse might slip out of my grasp. And in that cold blue glow, I saw the truth my wife fought so desperately to hide. She had changed the DNA results. She rewrote our lives with a few clicks, hoping the lie would bury itself in the shadows. But she forgot one thing. Every system keeps a memory, and that forgotten backup, it became the grave where our entire marriage was laid to rest. If I sound calm now, it's only because time smooths the edges of pain. Back then, I was still a man desperately clinging to the belief that my home was safe, that the laughter of my little boy was the sound of my own blood echoing back to me, that the woman who slept beside me, breathing softly into my neck, would never become the architect of my deepest heartbreak. I didn't know the storm gathering behind her eyes. I didn't notice the silences, the hesitation when I'd ask about the clinic appointment. I didn't see the way she deleted messages the moment they arrived. I thought we were simply going through one of those quiet phases marriages sometimes enter. How foolishly, painfully wrong I was. The story really began on a warm afternoon, sunlight spilling through the curtains as my son played on the carpet, tapping his little cars together. I watched him, feeling that familiar warmth in my chest, the kind that melts even the worst of days. But I also noticed something I had been trying to ignore for months. He didn't look like me. Not in the eyes, not in the hair, not in the face. People say genetics are unpredictable, that children take after grandparents or distant relatives. But the older he grew, the more that uneasy whisper in my heart grew too. I loved him. God, I loved that boy. I still do. But love doesn't silence doubt. It only makes the doubt hurt more. My wife, Naomi, must have sensed the shift in me. She began insisting that we take a DNA test, not because she feared anything, she said, but because she wanted to put my mind at ease. Those were her words, sweet, reassuring, beautifully crafted lies. I remember holding her hands that night, thanking her for understanding my insecurity. She kissed my forehead and told me nothing in this world could shake the truth of our family. When the results came in, she was the one who opened the email. I was at work, sitting through a long, pointless meeting, when her message popped up on my phone. See, you're his father, 99.9%. A wave of relief washed over me. I felt stupid for ever doubting. I even bought a cake on my way home, laughing at myself the whole time. That night we celebrated. Naomi held me close, whispering that we were stronger than fear. And for a moment, I believed her. But life has a way of revealing what the heart tries to hide. Weeks later, while clearing out space on my laptop, I stumbled upon a folder I didn't recognize. A small, tucked-away directory, created automatically by the DNA testing software. It stored the original raw data from the test, the data the clinic received before generating the official report. I opened the file without thinking, expecting to see the same confirmation Naomi had shown me. What I saw instead froze me completely. The raw data didn't match the final report. The probability of paternity wasn't 99.9%. It was 0%. 0. I stared at that number for a full minute, feeling the ground beneath me tilt. My breath thinned. My heart pounded in my ears like war drums. My world cracked open, piece by fragile piece. And in that moment, I realized Naomi hadn't just lied. She had rewritten reality. Before I go deeper, let me pause here for a moment. If you've ever trusted someone so completely, only to feel that trust crumble in your hands, you'll understand what comes next. Stay with me, and if stories like this resonate with you, feel free to subscribe. This space is where we walk through truths many people are too afraid to share. I closed the laptop slowly, as though the truth might explode if I moved too fast. My mind replayed every moment of the past few months, the hesitation in her eyes, the whispered phone calls, the deleted messages, the urgency with which she insisted on handling the test process herself. None of it had made sense then. All of it made sense now. And yet, a part of me still hoped it was a mistake. I clung to that hope the way a drowning man clings to a piece of wood in the ocean. Maybe I misread the numbers. Maybe this was just raw data that needed interpretation. Maybe the clinic had mixed samples. I told myself anything that could keep my world from collapsing. The mind does strange gymnastics when the heart is in danger. I opened the file again and forced myself to read it slowly, line by line. My name, Naomi's name, our son's name. The dates all matched. The sample codes matched the receipt they had given us. Under probability of paternity, that brutal number sat like a stone. 0. No uncertainty, no room for argument. 0. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. It was like someone had cut a hole in my life, and I was falling through it, grabbing at memories as I went down. The day he was born, the first time he called me daddy, the nights I walked him around the living room when he cried and refused to sleep. None of those moments felt fake. They were real. But this file was also real, and it was telling me that biology had never been on my side. That was when my professional brain finally woke up. I work in IT. I know how systems store information, how logs are kept, how backup files are created and hidden in places users never check. This was not some random document floating in my downloads folder. It was part of a generated archive. The creation date was before the email Naomi claimed to have read. The metadata showed no edits, no tampering. This was the original truth. The report she showed me weeks earlier, printed neatly and placed into my hands with a smile, had looked slightly off. I remembered that now. The logo a little blurry, the fonts not quite consistent. At the time, I had ignored it because I wanted to believe her. Now it all snapped into place like pieces of a cruel puzzle. She had taken the original report. She had edited it. She had printed a new one. She had looked me in the eyes and told me I had nothing to worry about. I do not remember standing up, but suddenly I was pacing the room, my heart racing, my thoughts hitting the walls of my skull. Every breath felt heavy. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to run. Instead, I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called the clinic. "Good afternoon. This is Emmanuel," I heard myself say. My voice sounded calm, almost professional. "I did a paternity test recently, and I need to confirm the official result on your system. I just need to make sure I am reading things correctly." The woman on the other side asked for my reference number. I gave it to her. There was a pause as she typed. "Yes, I see it here," she said. "The report was issued 5 weeks ago. The result probability of paternity is 0%. I am sorry, sir." There it was. No misunderstanding. No corrupted file. The truth was solid now, cold and official. "Can you email me a copy directly?" I asked, my throat dry. "We already sent it to the email on file," she replied. "It shows as Naomi's address, but I can add yours now and resend." A few seconds later, my inbox chimed. I opened the new message, and there it was. Same PDF, same number, same reality. When I ended the call, I sat in silence. I could hear cars passing outside, a distant dog barking, a neighbor singing along softly to a radio. Life continued outside my window, completely unaware that inside this small room, something had died. I do not know how long I sat like that. Eventually, I heard the front door open. Naomi came in with our son on her hip, laughing at something he had just said. They were both beautiful, his little arms around her neck, her hair tied back, a few curls escaping and falling around her face. She looked like every picture I had ever saved of us. She put him down when she saw me. "You are home early," she said. "Everything okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I could see two women at once. The woman I had loved and trusted, and the woman who had changed the report and decided for me what truth I was allowed to live with. "I needed to work from home today," I answered. My voice was steady, but inside, something trembled. Our son ran toward me, and I picked him up automatically, kissing his cheek. He laughed and pressed his forehead against mine. In that moment, I realized something deep and painful. Whatever the report said, my heart had already chosen him. I was already his father. The question was no longer about him. It was about her. I watched Naomi move around the kitchen, starting dinner, humming under her breath. The urge to confront her right then burned in my throat. I imagined slamming the printed report on the table, shouting, demanding answers. But there was a small voice inside me, the same careful, strategic voice I use at work when everything is on fire and I cannot afford a wrong move. That voice said, "Wait. Do not confront with only emotion. Confront with truth. Confront with proof she cannot twist." That night, after they were asleep, I printed the clinic's email copy, the original report, with the sharp logo and clean fonts. I put it in a plain folder and hid it under my side of the mattress. A strange kind of revenge was forming inside me, but it was not loud or violent. It was quiet, controlled. I wanted her to face what she had done with no escape, no excuses. I wanted her to stand in the full light of the truth she had tried to bury. The next few days felt like living in a play. I watched her closely, replaying past moments. The way she had insisted on being the one to open the original email. The way she had smiled when she told me, "See, 99.9%. You are his father." The fake shock, the fake offense, the fake tenderness. I wanted to hate her. I wanted that hate to come easily. But it did not. It came mixed with memories of her kindness, her sacrifices, the night she stood awake with our son in her arms while I slept. Betrayal is messy like that. It does not erase the good. It poisons it. I started noticing small details I had ignored before. Late-night messages where she turned her phone face down. Quick glances at the door when a certain name flashed on the screen. That one coworker she never mentioned by name, just someone from the office, as if giving him a name might give him a place in our lives. If you have ever lived with suspicions like that, you know how they eat at you. They disturb your sleep. They turn quiet afternoons into interrogation chambers in your mind. If you are listening to this and parts of my story feel too familiar, I want you to know this is a space where you are not judged for your questions. You can share what you have lived through, and if you want to keep walking through stories like this with me, you are welcome to stay, to subscribe, to be part of this circle where we put words to pain most people hide. On a Wednesday afternoon, I made my decision. I came home early again, this time with a purpose. I told my boss I needed some personal time. I asked my sister to pick our son up from school and keep him overnight. I wanted him far from whatever would happen in our house that evening. Naomi was in the kitchen when I walked in. The smell of stew filled the air. She turned, surprised. "Another early day?" she asked. "Something like that," I replied. There was a weight in my voice that she felt, because her smile faded slightly. I walked past her, into the living room, and sat on the couch. I told her I wanted to talk. Not later, now. She dried her hands and joined me, sitting across from me. For a moment, we just looked at each other. The silence between us felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. "Naomi," I began, "do you remember the day the DNA results came back?" Her eyes flickered just for a second. "Of course," she said. "We were so stressed before that. I am glad we moved past it." "Are you?" I asked quietly. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "You told me the result was 99.9%, I said. "You told me I was his father. You printed the report and handed it to me. You watched me cry. You watched me apologize for ever doubting you." She looked down at her hands. "Yes," she whispered. I reached under the cushion and pulled out the folder. I placed it on the table between us and opened it, revealing the original report from the clinic. Her eyes went to it immediately, and I saw it. That flash of fear, that sudden dullness in her face. "This," I said, tapping the bottom line, "is what the clinic had in their system. This is what they sent you. This is what they resent directly to me when I asked. 0%, Naomi. 0. Her lips parted slightly. Her hands began to shake. She did not touch the paper. She just stared at it as if it might burn her fingers. "You changed it," I continued, my voice low. "You opened the file, you edited it, you printed a new version, you gave it to me, and watched me accept the lie, as if it was a gift." She swallowed hard. One tear collected in the corner of her eye, and fell before she could wipe it away. "Say something," I whispered. "Please, tell me this is not what it looks like." Her shoulders collapsed. She covered her face with her hands and let out a broken sound, something between a sob and a gasp. "I was going to tell you," she said, her voice muffled. "I wanted to. I tried. So many times." "When?" I asked, anger finally cutting through my calm. "When exactly were you planning to tell me that the boy I have raised and loved, the boy I have given my whole life to, is not biologically mine? When he turned 18? When we were too old to start again? When I had spent my entire life living a lie that you created?" She looked up at me then, eyes red, mascara streaked. "I did not want to lose you," she cried. "I thought if you saw the result, you would walk out and never look back. I thought you would hate me. I thought you would reject him. I was scared." I laughed then. It was not a happy sound. "So instead of giving me the chance to decide for myself, you decided for me," I said. "You did exactly what you feared I would do. You betrayed me. You betrayed him. You betrayed our whole family. And you did it with a smile." She began to talk then, words tumbling out, about how it had happened, about the man, about the night. His name was Daniel, a colleague from her office. It started with friendly conversations that became more personal over time. It happened during a period when she and I were distant, when work stress and exhaustion had built a quiet wall between us. One night, after a company event, she drank too much. She called it a mistake, a moment of weakness. They slept together once, she said. She claimed it never happened again. Weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. She did the math and realized it could be mine, or his. She prayed it was mine. She clung to every sign that might prove it was mine. When our son was born, she saw certain features that reminded her of Daniel, and her heart sank, but she pushed the fear away. She convinced herself that if she treated me as the father, if she lived as if it were true, maybe reality would bend to her will. I listened. I heard every word, but each sentence felt like another cut. "When you suggested the DNA test," she said, "I panicked. I told myself that if you saw the result, everything would explode. I would lose my marriage. You would lose your son." So when the email came and I saw 0%, my world ended. I could not breathe. I opened the file, changed the number, printed it, and told myself I was protecting us. It was wrong. I know it was wrong. I hate myself for it. But I was so afraid. "Do you know what you did?" I asked, leaning forward. "You stole my choice. You stole my right to know my own life. You made me tell myself I was crazy for doubting. You let me carry guilt for questioning you, when you knew all along that my instincts were right." She sobbed, covering her mouth. "I am sorry," she kept repeating. "I am so sorry. Your sorry does not change the fact that every memory I have is now covered in doubt," I said. "Your sorry does not change the fact that you looked at me, watched me break, and chose the lie again and again." The room felt heavy, thick with pain. At some point she slid off the couch and knelt in front of me, her hands reaching for mine. I pulled them away. "Please," she whispered, "do not leave us. I will tell whoever you want. I will face your family, my family. I will tell Daniel. I will do whatever you say. Just do not take him away from you. You are his father. No one else has been there like you. I know I destroyed your trust, but do not punish him for my sin." The word sin hung in the air. "I will never punish him," I said. "He is the only innocent one in this whole story." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside the sun was setting, painting the sky gold and orange. It was cruel, how beautiful the world looked while my own inside world was in pieces. We talked until late into the night. The conversation circled around the same points: her fear, her guilt, my anger, my confusion, my love for a child who was now both mine and not mine at the same time. By the time we were too exhausted to continue, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were a strange mixture of rage and routine. I still took our son to school, still helped him with homework, still read him stories before bed. But every time I looked at Naomi, my chest tightened. I saw her trying, cooking, cleaning, sending me messages with verses about forgiveness and second chances. I also saw her watching me with quiet terror, as if waiting for the day I would pack a bag and disappear. I realized something important then. Betrayal does not end with the confession. It starts there. The confession is the earthquake. What follows are the aftershocks, small but constant, shaking everything you thought was stable. My family noticed something was wrong before I told them anything. My mother called one evening and asked why my voice sounded distant. My brother asked why I had not sent photos in a while. My sister asked if everything was okay, between Naomi and me. I kept saying yes, because I had not yet decided how much truth I wanted to spill into the world. Part of me wanted to protect our son from the judgment that would come if people knew the full story. Another part of me wanted justice, even public shame, for what Naomi had done. One Sunday afternoon, I sat with my closest friend, Samuel, at a small cafe. I had not told anyone. It was eating me alive. I needed to say it out loud. I did a DNA test, I finally said, my fingers tracing the edge of my cup. He is not mine. Samuel froze. His jaw tightened. He looked at me carefully. What do you mean, not yours? The result was 0%, I replied. She changed the report and lied. For months, I believed a fake paper instead of my own eyes. His first reaction was pure rage. For me. On my behalf. He cursed under his breath, shaking his head. He told me to leave, to walk away, to never look back. After what she did, you owe her nothing, he said. She played with your life, with that boy's life. You should expose her, tell everyone, make her pay. His words scratched at something dark in me. A part of me wanted that, wanted to call both families, print the report, lay it on the table in front of everyone, and watch her stand in the center of that circle of truth. Wanted to call Daniel, the man who had quietly vanished from the story, and drag him into the light as well. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you walk away without looking back? Would you make her face both families? Would you accept the child but cut her off completely? These questions have no easy answers, but they are real. If you feel like sharing, your stories and your perspectives matter here. And if you want to keep hearing stories like this, you can stay close, subscribe, and add your voice, because somewhere out there, someone is living this right now and does not know what to do. I went home that night with Samuel's words echoing in my head. Expose her. Make her pay. Vengeance is a tempting thing. It feels like justice with fire added. I imagined the look on her parents' faces, the silence from her sisters, the horror in her friends' eyes. I imagined Daniel's wife, if he had one, learning that her husband had a child in another man's house. I could see it all like a movie in my mind. So I made a plan. A week later, I told Naomi we needed to gather both sides of the family together. I said we had something important to share. She went pale at once. She knew. She tried to convince me that exposing everything would destroy too many lives at once. I told her lives were already destroyed. They just did not know it yet. On the day of the meeting, my parents came. Her parents came. My siblings. Her siblings. The living room was full. Our son was in his room with his cousins, laughing, unaware of the storm outside. I stood in the center of that room with the folder in my hands. Naomi sat on the edge of the couch, eyes fixed on the floor. I explained calmly that we had done a DNA test, that I had discovered a discrepancy between the result the clinic had and the result I had been given. I did not raise my voice. I did not insult her. I let the facts speak. I handed the report to my father first. I watched his face as he read the line at the bottom. His eyes lifted to mine, full of sudden tears and confusion. He passed it to my mother. She covered her mouth. Her shoulders shook. Then the paper went to her parents. Her mother's hand began to tremble so badly she had to place the report on her lap. The room filled with a heavy silence. Finally, my father spoke. "Naomi," he said softly, "is this true?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then, to her credit, she did something I did not expect. She stood up. She wiped her face. And she confessed, fully, in front of everyone. No excuses, no blame shifting. She spoke of the affair, the pregnancy, the fear, the altered report. She spoke of the way she chose deceit over courage again and again. Her parents cried. My mother cried. Her sisters stared at her in disbelief. Her father closed his eyes and shook his head slowly, as if each word hurt him physically. I felt the room move through phases of shock, anger, sorrow. One of her brothers turned to me and said, "We do not blame you if you leave. After this, no one would blame you." I looked at Naomi. Her face was wet, her eyes swollen. She did not ask me to stay. She did not defend herself. For the first time since it all began, she simply stood there and let the weight of what she had done fall where it needed to fall. On her. The strange thing was, seeing her exposed like that did not give me the satisfaction I thought it would. There was no sense of victory, no rush of triumph, just a deep, tired sadness. Revenge, I realized, is loud in your imagination, but quiet in reality. Once it arrives, it does not fix anything. It just leaves ashes. After the families left, the house felt hollow. Our son ran into the living room, asking why everyone looked so sad. My heart clenched. I knelt down and hugged him, holding him close. "I love you," I whispered into his ear. "Nothing will change that. Ever." In the days that followed, Naomi moved into the guest room. We began sleeping separately. The distance between us grew into something physical, not just emotional. We spoke mostly about practical things, bills, school, groceries, anything but the elephant standing between us. We started therapy, not because I was sure I wanted to rebuild the marriage, but because I needed help understanding what had happened to me. The therapist was gentle and firm. She let me talk. She let Naomi talk. She made us sit in the discomfort of our own choices, side by side. She asked us both hard questions. She asked Naomi when she had stopped trusting me enough to give me the truth. She asked me why I had ignored so many early signs, why I had chosen peace over questions for so long. In one session, the therapist looked at me and said, "You know, forgiveness does not always mean staying. You can forgive someone and still decide that the version of you who loved them that way no longer exists. You are allowed to protect yourself." I carried those words with me out of that office, like a small lantern in a long tunnel. Months passed. The sharp pain became a dull ache. Our son continued to grow, unaware of the full story, only vaguely sensing that something had changed between his parents. Naomi changed in ways I did not expect. She stopped sending me long messages, trying to convince me to stay. Instead, she focused on being a good mother, on showing through quiet actions that she understood the damage she had done. She apologized less with words and more with consistency. One evening, after I had put our son to bed, I found her sitting alone at the dining table, a cup of tea in her hands. "I know you will never see me the same way again," she said without looking up. "I know I am not entitled to your forgiveness, but I want you to know I am trying to become someone who would never do this again, even if you are not here to see it. I owe that to our son, I owe it to myself, and I owe it to you." There was something honest in that, something broken, but honest. I wish I could say that moment magically healed everything. It did not. Healing moved slowly, in small steps, but it was one of the first times I felt the anger in me loosen its grip slightly. The day I finally made my decision was quiet and unremarkable. I was watching my son draw on the living room floor. He had drawn 3 stick figures holding hands. I asked him who they were. He pointed at one and said, "That is you." The second one, "That is Mommy." The smallest one, "That is me." I stared at the drawing and realized that, whatever happened between Naomi and me, that triangle would always exist. I could not erase it without erasing him, and I would never do that. That night, I told Naomi that I wanted a separation, not in anger, not in spite, just in truth. "I cannot continue being your husband," I said. "The trust we had is gone. Maybe one day I will fully forgive you. Maybe I already have in some parts. But I cannot build a romantic life with someone I must constantly question. It is not fair to either of us." She nodded, tears in her eyes, but not pleading this time. "I understand," she said. "I broke something I do not know how to rebuild. We will co-parent," I continued. "We will raise him together. He will have both of us. I will never abandon him, Naomi. But I need a different life than the one we have now. One built on a truth I choose, not a lie that was handed to me." We worked out the details. I moved into a small apartment nearby, so I could still pick him up easily from school, still see him several times a week, still be present for the big and small moments. We told our son simply that Daddy would live in another house now, but that we both loved him, and that he would always have 2 homes. He cried. We cried. But children have a resilience that is both heartbreaking and beautiful. He adjusted slowly, carrying his favorite toy between 2 houses, making new routines with me and with her. As for Daniel, the biological father, he eventually tried to enter the picture when he learned the truth. He called. He asked to meet. I refused at first. Then, one day, I agreed to sit with him at a cafe. He looked nervous when he arrived. His eyes did not quite meet mine. "I did not know he was mine," he said. "Naomi never told me. If I had known..." I cut him off. "You had a wife?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "So you knew you were sleeping with a married woman while being married yourself," I said. "She is not innocent. You are not innocent. The only person I care about is that little boy. You will not drop in now and try to play father, because biology gave you a role you never earned." He sat in silence, absorbing the blow. I was not shouting. I did not need to. My calm was sharper than any raised voice. "I am not saying you can never know him," I added carefully. "But if that ever happens, it will be on his terms, when he is older, and after we have told him the truth in a way that does not destroy him. You do not get to tear his world apart because you suddenly feel guilty. You had your chance to be a faithful man. You chose otherwise." He nodded slowly, shame written all over his face. We ended the meeting with no promises. Walking home from that cafe, I felt something lighten in my chest. It was not joy. It was not peace. It was something closer to clarity. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was not just reacting to what had been done to me. I was choosing who I wanted to be in the middle of it all. That is what this journey taught me in the end. I learned that betrayal can come from the person who shares your bed and carries your secrets. I learned that revenge feels satisfying in your imagination, but in real life, it leaves you standing in the ashes of what used to be a home. I learned that forgiveness is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is a key you give to yourself, so you can walk out of the prison their actions built inside you. Most of all, I learned that fatherhood is deeper than DNA. My son still runs into my arms and calls me daddy, and my heart still answers with the same love as before. The report did not change that. The lies tried to. The truth restored it. If you are living something like this right now, I will not tell you what to do. I will not say stay or leave, forgive or walk away. Your story is your own. But I will tell you this. You deserve the truth. You deserve a life where you are not constantly wondering what is real and what was edited to keep you quiet. And you deserve to know that even after the deepest betrayal, you can still rise, still love, still build something new on a foundation that is finally honest. Naomi and I are no longer husband and wife. We are two parents, two flawed human beings with a shared responsibility and a shared history that will never fully disappear. One day, when our son is old enough to understand, we will sit him down together and tell him the truth, not to break him, but to show him that mistakes, even terrible ones, can be faced without hiding, because that is the final thing I learned. You can change a file, you can print a lie, you can run from the truth for a while, but somewhere, in a forgotten backup, in a quiet memory, in the eyes of a child who loves you without knowing your sins, the truth is still there, waiting. And when it finally comes out, it hurts, it destroys, it also cleanses. The night I discovered that backup file, I thought my life was ending. In reality, it was the beginning of a life where I chose reality over illusion, pain over comfortable deceit, and healing over hatred. I walked through betrayal. I thought of revenge. I found a path to forgiveness, not for her, but for myself. And the greatest justice I found was this: I am still standing,